And away we go. The DFS Early Bird presented by Awesemo.com, brought to you in part by Yahoo DFS. All hopped up on tryptophan here on Thursday night Thanksgiving as we record for Friday's 10-game slate. It's all BS anyway, right, Lofty? You know, tryptophan doesn't actually, no, it exists. But anyway, Dave, how the hell you doing?
Doing all right, man. Had a nice Thanksgiving. Ate some turkey, some stuffing.
How many helpings?
Some
How many
taters,
helpings?
some sweet potato bake. Not bad, man. Not
How
bad.
many helpings? Are we talking like 2 platefuls, 4 platefuls? What's your?
No, they have a lot of like apps there where we go to Justine's aunt's house. So had a ton of that prior, right? I had one massive plate, like to the point where I thought it might bend over and break. But it was a good Thanksgiving. I like to eat food. I believe we both do, and I also had a little bit of a break today. You know, got the show right now, got the early bird, but outside of that, had the first day off in I don't know how
long. Valentine's Day. Well, NBA All-Star break. Oh, probably Major League Baseball All-Star break would be my guess.
I mean, I think I've probably taken a day off here. I can't remember, but
I don't think you have.
Oh, no. My honeymoon.
Oh, you got married, right? Right. That whole thing. That
so
little
do it.
Life-altering decision a few months back. I went 3 plates full. I was very proud of myself, and then went for 4 different pieces of pie. So I will be hurting through the weekend, and I'm damn proud of myself for that. So we're gonna keep rocking. A little apple crisp was very good. Vanilla ice cream on the side, very, very, very good. Thanksgiving on our side of the house. So we have 10 games on this slate. We're gonna go through it position by position. We do have Luka. We do not have Harden and Westbrook. We have Giannis at the top at 12 flat on DK. LeBron is 11-2. AD is 10 flat. We're going to take a quick scroll through here just to cover off on any potential injuries that we need to keep track of. D'Angelo Russell remains out. Jimmy Butler had the sickness. The illness is questionable as of right now. He did miss Wednesday's game. Just reading through the note. Could be in danger of missing a second game. So that's something to keep an eye on for Butler being out. Obviously, Houston blowing out the Heat for most of that game. Porzingis has a Q tag for Dallas. He is listed as probable, in fact. So scrolling quickly, Al Horford is definitely out against the Knicks. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's already been ruled out for rest. Yeah.
Okay, so he's out for rest. Ricky Rubio is probable for Friday's game with his back issues. That will probably just be a lingering issue all year for Rubio. Josh Richardson for the 76ers is doubtful for Friday's game, so he could be without Richardson and Horford there. And let's leave that there. We'll hit on other potential injuries as we scroll on. We'll throw out that Aaron Gordon is doubtful here for the Orlando Magic, so maybe more Jonathan Isaac in our lives when we get to small forward and power forward. But let's start at point guard. Luka Doncic, very good at basketball. I don't know if all of you are aware of that. He is at 11-8, gets a matchup with the Phoenix Suns. I'll check on the line momentarily. But is 11-8 too much, Luffy? I guess we have to start there and build down the position at point guard. Is 11-8 on its own on Friday's 10-game slate too much for Luka, or does it feel in line with something you're willing to pay? And if you can get there, you're going to be more than happy to do that to get to the point guard.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things. Or one of the things is it depends who else is on the slate, but with 13 games, you're going to have to make some difficult decisions. You look on DraftKings specifically of 9K and up, you have Embiid, Drummond, Leonard, Beal, Trae Young, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Antetokounmpo, and he's facing Cleveland. So I don't think Doncic is too expensive. And here are a couple of reasons why. First of all, you just cannot find this type of production elsewhere, aside from someone like Giannis, who is also, actually more expensive than he is. You're going to get some very, very, very good games from James Harden and from LeBron James, Anthony Davis. These guys are going to produce monster numbers. But right now, you're talking about a 36% usage rate, 48% assist rate, 15% rebound rate. Leads his team in all of those categories in usage, potential assist, rebound opportunities. So it's not just that he's getting lucky either. The opportunities are there, and that's what we care about. And with this game, Phoenix is going to this. I would expect this game to see quite a bit of scoring. there's no reason to assume that it won't. Phoenix isn't the same, massive pace up team that we've seen before, but they're still a top 10 pace team.
Right.
Dallas, meanwhile, is I think 17th. Yeah, but Phoenix started off solid defensively earlier in the season. They're still middle of the league, but you're seeing them come down a little bit here. I think this is a spot where if you wanted to get to Luka, I'd be all right with it. You have a 233.5 total. The Mavericks are 1.5 point favorites. If Doncic went for 70 again here, it wouldn't be a huge surprise. It really wouldn't.
Right. And obviously we will make the typical statement that value will come out throughout the day on Friday, which will allow us to get to some light Doncic.
And I haven't made lineups yet, to be clear. Like it's what I'm saying is, let me put it to you this way. In a vacuum, am I willing to pay that much for Doncic? The answer is yes. Right. The context of this slate, there's still a long way to go. That's why we have the strategy show, the deeper dive live before like all of that. But do I think it's a point where it's so prohibitive that you can't play him? No, not at all.
Right. And that's the question I was asking and the answer I was looking for. So appreciate that. And obviously roster construction will come through at some point on Friday, heading up to the 7:00 lock on Friday night. LeBron, Trae Young, I'll always sort of leave LeBron to small forward. You get Trae Young, Dame Lillard, Ben Simmons is 8,100. Looks like Horford and Richardson both could be out there. Brogdon, price point came up very quickly, is up to 7,900. You have Drew, Booker at 79. Well, reverse that. Booker and Holiday at 79, 7,800 respectively. Donovan Mitchell's right in there. Van Vliet, Morant, Paul, Levine. Levine's had a decent run of late, has shown some upside that we've seen from him in the past. He gets a matchup with the Portland Trailblazers. How do you think about point guard as a whole, and who are some of the names that stand out to you at first glance here?
Yeah, one of the biggest things here, I'll say right now, the biggest piece of news on the slate that we're waiting for is Jimmy Butler. Okay, this is huge. We don't have a line on this game because we're still waiting for Butler's status, but he's questionable. He sat out last game, and now he's facing the Golden State Warriors in Miami. Blowout risk, yeah, certainly, but that's not going to keep you from getting to some of these value plays in the event that he's out. Just looking at what we saw last game, I would say there was some certain disappointment there in terms of them producing with Butler off the floor. But Kendrick Nunn played 29 minutes, had 20 fantasy points. Certainly disappointing, shot very poorly. Goran Dragic, though, played 34 minutes in this game. He had a horrible outing. I mean, look, you're talking about someone that's averaging 5 assists per game. He had 1 assist. It was just brutal, right? Through and through. It doesn't get worse than that. I don't expect that to be the case if Butler's out. I think it's going to help Goran Dragic a lot. You know that Butler is one of their primary facilitators here, and there's just no way that we get such a terrible stat line. This game came against Houston. They lost by I think like 9 points. But just looking at this last game, Goran Dragic on the 27th had oh man, I pulled up the wrong thing. I wanted to see how many potential assists he had in this game because it just seems very, very unlikely that Goran Dragic maybe saw 3 potential assists and ended up being terrible. But there's going to be certain value here. His price tag really hasn't budged. He was actually come down $100 on DraftKings. If that's the case, I'll go right back to him. 34 minutes from Dragic to me makes plenty of sense. He's been exactly a fantasy point per minute guy this season. He's facing that Golden State backcourt. You've got to like it. He had 5 potential assists. Who do you think led the team in potential assists this game? Kendrick Nunn was second with 10.
I have no idea. Adebayo.
Nice call, bro.
Yeah, dude, no way.
I swear to God, dude. He had 14 potential assists.
That's Miami Heat offense.
Right. That's crazy, though. That's insane. I said this. This is like the term I use for Adebayo. He's a jack of all trades. And that's what I love about him. He had 17, 11, and 8 assists with a block and a steal. He's getting up there in price, but I'll tell you what, man, against this Golden State front court, we'll get to Adebayo, but just so I don't forget, it's really hard to look at what we've seen from him, particularly last game with Butler out. Now, mind you, I'm talking about if Butler's out.
Right.
If he's in, I still have no problem with Bam, but if he's out, that's really appealing. Bam led the team in touches too. Goran Dragic was second with 67. Like I said, I still think you see some improvement there. Tyler Hero in this game had 5 potential assists himself. He played 35 minutes and shot 18 times. Pretty solid effort there. He's also cheap. So just keep a very close eye on Jimmy Butler's status. It's going to play a pretty big role here. Now, outside of him, it gets for 13 games. You would think right now that we'd have significantly better value. And I honestly feel like that's not the case right now. That's why I mentioned out of the gate what we're going to get with Jimmy potentially being sidelined. But, Draymond Green last game played 24 minutes, right? He was active, played 24 minutes. He had a huge game, though. Well, given the amount of minutes that he played, Dan, he had 7, 5, 8, 2, and 3. So across the board, just monster overall numbers from Draymond Green. I'd be curious to know what his playing time is going to look like. He's point guard eligible on DraftKings. If you pull up his first half rotation, okay, he played 5 minutes, only had 1 personal foul. He didn't return till 5.5 minutes left in the second quarter. So he played about 10.5 minutes in the first half. And then he played 5:46 to start the third. No foul trouble. And then he didn't return until there was 7.5 minutes left. And that game at the time was like a 2-point game. So I don't like that at all. If there's some reason here that maybe because he was sidelined, they wanted to work him back in slowly. I'm going to pay very close attention to what we get here if Steve Kerr says anything about his minutes. But I don't think any of us will be surprised if Dre's minutes come down going forward because of how bad this team is. I would love him here, even against Miami, because I think he's affordable. He's handling a ton of ball or facilitating responsibilities. But if he's going to play 25 minutes and literally going to sit out 15 straight minutes in each half, that's tough to get behind.
I wonder, and I watched some of the highlights. I did not watch this game, to be fair, the Golden State game, but Pascal and Glenn Robinson III both had pretty solid outings. Now, Robinson III didn't necessarily show it in points, but showed it in plus minus. Obviously, the entire team pretty solid plus minus, picking up the win here. But wonder if that played a little bit in where Draymond Green's minutes went. I know it doesn't necessarily show in the second quarter. They did play Spellman for a good chunk of the second quarter here for the Golden State Warriors, but more within reason by you, Dave, here. Just see if there's more behind it or if there's more projected for Friday, if they talk about how many minutes he'll be seeing, and then go from there to understand a little bit better. As we roll on here to shooting guard, trying to get you a first sense of where Dave is looking, where projections might be going.
Sorry, real quick, just Malcolm Brogdon, his price has come up, but against this Atlanta team, I have a tough time not having interest there. I do wish that he played more than the 30 minutes we were seeing from him, but he's definitely still in play here. Donovan Mitchell. Well, go ahead. Shooting guard. We can get into a couple of these guys.
Sweet. And I think that's more than reasonable. I will remind everyone that over on Yahoo DFS, there is the $200K baller, which is $10 entry. And that is a NFL tournament. It's a 10.1% management fee. And then you have $200,000 in prizes there, $20K to first place. They do have a NBA $200K Purple Friday special, $25K in overlay. It's listed on the site and listed in the emails we got, 12 games, negative 14.3% management fee, meaning they're guaranteeing overlay here. So $25K in overlay is guaranteed. Typical lock, 7 p.m., $10 entry. If you are looking to get into a tournament where there is even more upside, this is it. So I will point you in the direction of Yahoo. We have tons of content available on Osmo.com for Yahoo DFS specifically. EMAC does a great job writing up a lot of Yahoo plays, but also throughout the shows, throughout the day, meaning the NBA Strategy Show, the Deeper Dive, and Live Before Lock. All these guys are well-versed in how the prices work over there, roster construction, so don't be afraid to check those out. And if you're not yet a member, Osmo.com, use the promo code EARLYBIRD. We do have a promo code coming next Monday for Cyber Monday that will also get you a nice deal if you want to stay tuned for that and want to hang tight on the free stuff over there on YouTube till then. With all that said, let's dive into shooting guard. Bradley Beal, whichever you want to refer to him as, is 9-4 on DK. This is a guy that obviously with these Washington Wizards playing at a high pace and obviously without a ton of their stars has a pretty significant usage rate, 30.5, good for I think about 15th, if I remember correctly, in the NBA so far this season. But he is your most expensive shooting guard, and on a slate where you do have the likes of AD and Doncic and LeBron, maybe you don't get there. Kawhi, shooting guard, small forward eligible. Maybe we leave him for small forward. But you started mentioning Brogdon, Donovan Mitchell. When we're talking point guard, where do you see them fitting in, and how do you see shooting guard overall?
Yeah, and by the way, with this being a 13-game slate, there's really no better day to try and get in as much of the live streams, and you have the early bird now, but as much of content as you can, because there's no way on a preliminary, like, foundational pod that we're hitting on everything. You just can't do it, especially given that we don't have really any news, and we still don't have lines on a bunch of games either. So just keep that in mind. Brogdon's eligible here on DraftKings. I think Donovan Mitchell at 7,800 is pretty reasonable too. He's a guy that I generally don't feel comfortable paying like mid 8K for, but he's got a pretty high ceiling. He's going to have some big games. He's a 30+% usage guy going up against a very bad Memphis defense. So Donovan Mitchell stands out as an interesting sub 8K option. Got a 32% usage rate this year. Problem is only 21% assists. So you really rely on scoring with him, whereas other guys you don't. Malcolm Brogdon being one of them, but also Donovan Mitchell is going to play 5 to 7 more minutes than him, which is something you really have to like. We talked about Luka. It might not look like a good point per dollar value, but anybody that can drop 70, 80 fantasy points with, a 30, 10, 11 triple-double in 25 minutes is definitely going to be on my radar. For value, though, man, there's not a ton of value here, and it's kind of strange. You would think there'd be more, but that isn't the case. You have cheap guys like Darius Garland, but it's ugly. If we just take a look at some of the cheaper options and maybe we can pull something out here, like Isaiah Thomas is one that he's given me fits this season. He really has. I've rostered him in spots. He's been terrible, particularly, well, Denver is a 2-game slate. What's it matter? But a couple of other games where he's just in a very favorable position and outright sucked. 25 minutes last game, 22 before that, 29, 21, 24, 29, 24, 33, 29, 20. He's all over the place, Dan.
Yep.
And that's kind of concerning. He had 5 fouls in that last game. I just want to make sure I was out drinking Wednesday night, as everybody should have been. Right? Paying attention and watching the games on the TVs, but not as much focusing on what Isaiah Thomas foul trouble looked like. So let's see here. He had one. So he played, 7.5 minutes to start.
I think it's all in the third. Yeah, he picked it up in the third, right?
Yeah. So he didn't. He picked up 3 personal fouls. He had 2 going into the fourth. He picked up 3 personal fouls with like only 5 or 6 minutes left in the game. So that had no effect. He was basically in line to play 25 minutes. So not great there. Has eligibility at point guard, not shooting guard, but with the amount of flexibility that we have on DraftKings, it kind of doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Furkan Korkmaz, have fun. I mean, it's likely that he's going to get the start here, and he's probably going to play around 30 minutes, maybe more. On a per minute basis, he has not been very good, but he is just above minimum salary. So I do think you could do worse than him. And like I said, there's not a lot of very good value. I just mentioned the couple guys at point guard, and it's ugly. Like Wes Iwundu, you interested in that? I don't think you are. What else do we have here? No, it's bad. Derek White is another one of those guys that you don't feel confident at all about him. He pretty low floor, low ceiling guy, but he'll give you 25 minutes. A tough matchup against the Clippers, though, so I probably don't get there. Just trying to pull something out here. Bradley Beal, expensive, but I just throw him out there. I think against the Lakers, this matchup's pretty difficult. They're only 11-point dogs, 234 total, though. My guess is Bradley Beal's ownership is very low. What do you see in terms of value at this position? Anything that stands out to you as a top option at their respective price?
Not a damn thing, to be quite honest. You hit on the San Antonio Spurs, and I think that's sort of the roulette or slots of DFS right now, figuring out which of these guards could have the upside between Forbes and White and Mills, and you throw, even a guy like a Bellinelli in there from time to time, and then DeJounte Murray over at point guard. If you can get them right on the right slate, they're all pretty cheap. So I think that's more than reasonable. It's just the risk I don't know is necessarily worth the reward. Beyond that, at shooting guard, it feels like, and we do the the syllabus every day. I don't know what's actually called on the front end, but where most of these analysts do a pick at top cash game play, top GPP play, and so on. Shooting guard's going to be somewhere I'm paying up. So I think that's pretty significantly obvious right now. And unless something really changes to open things up dramatically, I see that as pretty pat to start this slate and where we go from there. Let's talk some small forward next, where we do have Giannis, Luka eligible here. We talked about him at length at point guard. LeBron, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George are 9,300 and 8,800 respectively. Jimmy Butler, as Dave said before, has the gigantic sort of designation for this slate. Questionable, potentially doubtful with this illness. He sat out Wednesday. Reports are saying he could miss another game. That would be obviously Friday night as we talk about it. Then you get Ingram and Simmons. What's your take here on Ben Simmons? And I get that Al Horford doesn't necessarily impact Simmons greatly, but Josh Richardson could be out as well. And that should open up at least some shots. And you do have a game here for the Philadelphia 76ers against a Knicks team that gives up a decent amount of points. They've had some close calls. I think it was 106-104. The 76ers beat them, or 104-102 a week or so ago. But do you think Simmons is in a good enough spot here to exploit at 8,100?
I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but a couple of interesting things. Number one, when you look at his per minute production this year, it definitely hasn't been stellar, but he's averaging 1.15 fantasy points per minute. His last two games in regulation, he's played 37 and 41 minutes. So that's pretty significant. I think Simmons is fine here. I don't have him as a must play or a top option by any stretch, because you've got him going up against you got him going up against a lot of other high-end players on this slate. So it'll be difficult to get there. But can Al Horford being out make a difference? It's possible. I mean, maybe more rebounds to go around. I could see that being the case. But yeah, without Horford and without Richardson, Richardson right now is doubtful to play. So without both of those guys, yeah, you would think that it helps. But the honest to God truth is, we really don't know. Like we don't know if it's going to make a difference or not. For all we know, Ben Simmons continues to shoot 9 to 11 times per game, and you don't get what you need from him. But with Simmons, so I'm going to pull this up right now. So I'm going to give you what we've got in terms of Simmons usage with Horford, usage and per minute production, with Horford and with Josh Richardson off the court. I'm not going to put it with Embiid on there with him, so keep that in mind. I would run it, if you're doing this yourself, if you're going to hit Wowie yourself, I would do it with Embiid and then without Embiid. Don't have to take him off, but just run it with just Ben Simmons, because Brett Brown's going to stagger minutes a lot, and he's going to have to probably do it even more so in this game with Harris, Embiid, and Simmons, assuming Richardson is in fact out. But so you've got, since 2019, I can't imagine he played a ton of minutes without them, especially given that we've seen Joel Embiid sit a few games.
Right.
While this loads, though, Dan, I'll just give you Jabari Parker. I find this to be a very interesting spot. He's had a couple monster games, and he's clearly getting ample opportunity behind Trae Young. And outside of Trae Young, it's Jabari Parker's been the go-to guy here. And, usage has been high enough. He just dropped 64.5 DraftKings points with 33, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, couple steals, and a block. Really solid performance against the tough Milwaukee defense. I think this game probably stays competitive enough. The Pacers are 10.5-point favorites, but I'm really not putting too much stock into that. So here you go. Ben Simmons has played 89 minutes without Horford and without Richardson, 17.5% usage rate.
Wow.
8% rebounding rate, 33% assist rate, and 1.08 fantasy points per minute. Now, very small sample. I wouldn't read too much into it. But what I could tell you is assuming he continues to lack aggressiveness, and we've seen that regardless of who's on the floor, I don't think it makes a huge difference. However, Ben Simmons in this spot alone is a pretty decent play, and there's really nothing about the New York Knicks defense to suggest that suggests we should be worried about it. So I see it in two ways. One is, does it make a huge difference that these guys are out? No, probably not. Is it also a really good spot, and his price tag's fair enough if he's going to continue to play north of 35 minutes per game? Yeah, but Knicks playing at a bottom 3 pace this year. A lot of that's mitigated by their bottom 10 defense, but there you have it.
All right. What about the rest of the position? You started talking a bit about another play with Jabari Parker before the load there of usage for Simmons. Anywhere else you're going? You mentioned Draymond Green earlier, point guard. Assume some of that ports over here. Carmelo Anthony is 6,200. We know he can still score. He doesn't play defense, but maybe he gets an opportunity. Same price as Jabari Parker. What do you think of the mid-tier at small forward?
Yeah, the mid-tier is okay. I mentioned Jabari already. Draymond Green, if we don't have anything to worry about here, and we assume that the minutes come back up, that's interesting. But what about Tobias Harris would be the answer too. Tobias Harris should play closer to the basket. You should get him at the 4. You might see Korkmaz and Matisse Thybulle in the starting lineup, right? You're not going to play Kyle O'Quinn at the 4. Actually, Kyle O'Quinn I think is out anyway, but you don't really have any alternatives there. So I think Harris gets moved to the 4, and that just makes him a way more appealing option at this price point. Tobias Harris, from a mid-range standpoint, would be someone that really stands out to me, because once you get past that, you're looking at, say, Danilo Gallinari, and there's no real ceiling here, right? It's a really appealing matchup, but there's just no ceiling on somebody like him. So I don't think I get there. I don't think I get to Kawhi above 9K. Whenever you want to play on Antetokounmpo, just go ahead and do it. But do I think he's a must play at 12K? I don't. And I feel that way about a lot of these guys. Brandon Ingram's got a pretty tough matchup against OKC. That team's beginning to get healthy. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the 6K range guys are pretty interesting here.
Yep, I think there's a decent amount of upside. And again, talking through point guard and shooting guard thus far, does feel like at shooting guard especially, first glance going to be paying up. So finding some at least decent mid-range potential plays at small forward does have some upside with the likes of Green and Anthony and Parker. And I'll throw Marcus Morris has been very good for the Knicks to start the year, playing a ton of minutes. Last time out, only played 21. That has to do with a bad game for the Knicks against the Toronto Raptors. Here again, do we have a line on the Philadelphia Knicks game? I assume we do. You might have mentioned it before. 7.5.
Line on the
7.5 for Knicks,
yeah.
And but 206 as the over/under. Whew. That is impressive. And Lofty and I have talked about it many times before. When we first started doing this podcast together, there were tons of 195s and 200s. What is it now? 6 years ago. And you would see 180s and 185s, and maybe even probably lower than that at the time. And then the quick jump, and then it jumped again, then jumped again. To see a total at 206 or near 200 is really crazy in today's NBA. But 206.5, 206.5. There are 2 games at that. Raptors Magic and Knicks and 76ers, both at 206.5 on this slate. Anybody else worthwhile at small forward or ready to power on to see, I made a point to not say move forward. No, but the thing is, I was saying not move forward to power forward. I was trying to say power on to power. That's just even worse.
It's bad.
That's really bad. Are you ready to move on to power forward?
Let's power on.
Well done. Giannis, AD, Paul George, Pascal Siakam, Brandon Ingram, Sabonis. Sabonis is a guy that I don't feel like I get right often, but has been a really solid play many times over, has been minutes up there, has had good matchups, gets a matchup here with the Atlanta Hawks at 7,900. Kevin Love coming back from his back woes. Did play how many minutes last time out? 24 minutes and 25 in the game previous to that. Maybe not getting as much run as you'd like at 7,100, but what do you like? Does power forward give you a little bit more than these other positions, or does this feel like a slate where maybe we have to figure some things out to really build the lineup we want to have?
Yeah, man, with 13 games, it's hard to prioritize some of the guys that you might actually do so on other sites. Kevin Love being an example, 24 minutes, not going to be able to get there. Blake Griffin, I've been staying away from him, but I got a little bit of him last time out. I thought we'd get a better game, but it was at least his best game of the season. So
right.
we're moving. The trajectory is at least something that we're okay with. He got up 21 shots, which was also a season high, played 31 minutes. I do think Blake is okay here against Charlotte. No team allows more points in the paint than Charlotte. Defensively, they've been terrible. Blake does strike me as a really good option here. And then Sabonis at a similar price point, a little bit more, but a similar price point. You just talked about him for a moment. He's just a phenomenal rebounder, and he scores enough, and then he gives you enough peripherals. He's actually a pretty decent passer. He has 6+ assists in 5 of his last 10 games. Not bad. I think the floor you get on him is really solid against an Atlanta team whose front court worries you not even remotely. So I don't mind power forward here. There's actually a couple spots I really like. Anthony Davis too. I like Anthony Davis quite a bit against Washington, coming off a 41-9 game against his former Pelicans team. He's the same exact price point. It hasn't budged. And now you got him going up against the Washington team that is, bottom 3 in defensive rating, top 5 in pace, but also has a decent enough offense to where this game could stay closer than you think. I'd say of all the positions we've discussed so far, I like power forward the most at the top. Siakam against Orlando, it's still a tough matchup. Like Jonathan Isaac's been very good defensively. I'd rather go Sabonis here. I'd rather pay down for Blake. Both of those guys are cheaper. Kristaps Porzingis is probable. I like him against Phoenix. It's a solid enough spot. Another 7K range guy is in. I really like him. That 7K range, just like the 6K on a small forward, 7K range here is really, really friendly. And I think this is probably where I'm going to be living outside of Anthony Davis, who we have to like too. Also, another thing to consider is Chris Boucher, $3,900, played 25 minutes last time out, got some blowout run, but I don't know if Serge Ibaka has already. I think he's doubtful. He's doubtful. Could you look towards Boucher as a decent value option here? Yeah, I think it's possible. Also a volatile one, but where we stand, I think we're going to get news that'll make a difference, that'll open things up. But where we stand right now, there just is not a lot to go off of. Unless you want to go to like James Ennis, hope he gets 26 minutes, 27 minutes with the Sixers with Richardson out. It's kind of ugly.
I do need to follow up. So you're telling me Anthony Davis not playing against his old team is still a good play? I just want to clarify. I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
I just find it funny though that like Anthony Davis scoring 60 fantasy points is a revenge thing when he scored 60 in 3 of his last 5.
Right. We've talked about it many times, and tongue in cheek, obviously, firmly planted tongue in cheek here. But
he did take 30 shots though. So
right, look, and that's the narrative, and I get it. So that's a legitimate question. But the idea that any NBA player is more juiced to play against us, especially when they ceded to his whatever. Anyway,
well, the thing is like Kobe Bryant narrative game with the retirement game for sure. There are certain spots where you can assume they're going to shoot more. The problem is if you actually use projections, are you going to change, like manually adjust your projections to give them more field goal attempts that game? You give them more minutes to give them more blocks. That's the problem. So when we talk about narratives, I've said it all the time, that it's just how are you going to quantify them? How are you going to actually work that into your projections? Go ahead and are you just going to go ahead and assume that they're going to do more of this or more of that and be more efficient? That's the problem you run into.
All right, let's close it out talking about center. We will have tons of Yahoo content available to you. Again, Yahoo helps bring you this podcast. And again, to hammer home to you, $25K in overlay, $25,000 in overlay over on Yahoo in their $200K Purple Friday special, $200,000 in prize pool, negative 14.3% management fee. Right now, looking at it, let me refresh to be accurate. Don't want to get this wrong. 2,102 entries out of 17,000 thus far. These sort of tournaments, though, they fill up quickly as we promote them. And to be honest, other sites promote them. If you want to be in on it, get in early, use the deposit and get over there. Use the $10. What's the max entry of 25? So $250 max entry in this tournament. You have the $25,000 in guaranteed overlay. You want to check that out if you are looking to do so. Let's talk center and be done with the DFS early bird. You do have AD at the top end as your most expensive center. Drummond, listen, and I will say, I think it's pretty obvious on DK, you're probably not playing AD at center simply because of multi-position eligibility. It doesn't make a ton of sense to use that spot for somebody who's power forward and obviously forward eligible. But if you so choose, he is eligible there. Drummond, 9,200 against Charlotte stands out to me, Dave, not surprisingly. High price point. You have Embiid against a Knicks front court that probably doesn't have anyone that can truly guard him on a regular basis. Gobert, Adebayo, who may put up another 14 potential assists in this one, depending on how this offense runs. Whiteside at 8K, Sabonis, we talked about Love, we've talked about Aldridge. So center only eligible players: Drummond, Embiid, Gobert, Adebayo, and Hassan Whiteside. Anybody stand out to you or ones that you would want to play on this slate?
I got to tell you, Drummond has disappointed a lot of people lately, and Blake Griffin being back doesn't help. But if there was a spot to just smash an opponent, it's Charlotte. And we saw last game, he played 38 minutes. He had 52 fantasy points, 21 rebounds. I'm expecting better numbers from Drummond against this same team. It's a home-and-home series. I am. They allow the most points in the paint. They're also one of the worst teams in terms of putback attempts allowed. They've been hammered on the boards this season. It's literally a dream matchup for Andre Drummond. So I don't know how I don't get back there. And people are gonna game log watch and say, well, yeah, but he really hasn't been great against them in 2 games this season. Well, he's played 38 minutes in both of them. Okay, he has 20 plus rebounds in both of them. One of them, he didn't have any steals or blocks. Right, no steals or blocks. 16 points. When you see a guy that's racking up, this many rebounds, and that all he needs is a couple offensive boards to fall his way,
right.
And you see him rack up like 6 and 6 in 2 minutes, like we've seen before. It's just a really great spot here, and I'm not getting away from it. I'm also not getting away from Joel Embiid at 9K. I'd mentioned that Sacramento allows the most post-up points per possession in the league. The Toronto Raptors, who he scored 0 points against, allow the fewest points per possession on post-ups. Look at the difference in production, right? 59 fantasy points, 33 points on 10 for 19 shooting, got to the line 14 times, just ravaged them down low as he should have. 0 for 4 from 3, 0 for 3 from the charity stripe, 0 for 11 from the field against Toronto, 17 fantasy points. I think you get another big-time game from Joel Embiid here. I think you get 32 minutes from him, and 2 of those guys up top. We already talked about Anthony Davis. To be clear, I like Davis more than Drummond and Embiid, okay? But I do really like these guys in the 9K range too. I like Adebayo. I specifically, if Butler's out. If he's not, probably have a tougher time getting there. But if he's out, I really do like him. Hassan Whiteside's price tag has finally risen to the point where we probably won't be doing a whole lot with that. Talk to Porzingis. Rudy Gobert against Memphis. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I think you're probably just going to get up to like an Anthony Davis or an Embiid or a Drummond if you're going to be paying up here. Wendell Carter Jr.'s price is coming up. He's always interesting to me, especially against the Portland team that's been hammered in around the basket. This has been a really rough go for them. Even with Whiteside, he's not a good defender. He's just a good shot blocker. That's a big struggle, is the inability to keep guys from producing in the paint and around the basket. But Carter Jr. he's struggled lately, but the minutes have been there, and he's not getting in as much foul trouble. As a tournament option, if you can find him cheap, DraftKings is too much at 6,800. If you can find him cheap, I do find him to be pretty appealing as well. And then if we're talking value, I talked about Boucher, Mitchell Robinson. I guess that the big thing is he played 31 minutes last game. I just don't know how much run we should expect him to get. But in tournaments, it's not at all crazy to say, all right, you know what? This guy definitely has a high ceiling. He can produce in a multitude of ways. Let's see what he can do. On the 24th against the Nets, he had 3 fouls 3 minutes into the second quarter. And then he returned. He had no fouls, but then he racked up 2 fouls with 2 minutes into the fourth quarter. And then he didn't return until, let's see here. He didn't return until there was like 5 minutes left, and he fouled out within a minute. So it looks like the foul trouble definitely affected him, but it's very possible that Robinson would have played about 28, 30 minutes here if foul trouble wasn't an issue, at least around 27. So I don't mind getting here, especially if he's completely off the radar. Might be an interesting spot, and a lot of his minutes could come with Embiid on the bench, even though Brett Brown staggers his top player.
Pardon me if you hit on him. I was trying to pull up some numbers, but Myles Turner has been somebody that just seems to be overpriced still. And I know he's around 6,300 on DK, but he doesn't seem to have the upside we've seen from him in the past. Is that directly correlated to Sabonis, or do you think the injuries that have hindered him over the years and starting this year have really taken a toll and just made him a less dynamic player in the post?
The thing is, he's not a good rebounder, right? He's never been a particularly good rebounder at a position where you should be good at rebounding. And that takes away from him for sure. You look at the rebound chances per game this year, he's averaging 14, which isn't terrible, but for a center, it's not great. Here's why. Sabonis is averaging 22.1 rebound chances per game, playing some more minutes, but still, he's averaging 13.3 rebounds to Turner's 6.3. And when you look at Turner, he's the type of guy that when he gets the block shots, which he's a phenomenal shot blocker, there's no question, one of the best shot blockers in the league. My guess is that he either leads the league in block shots per game or is, top 2 or 3. Let's see, he is third behind Davis and Jonathan Isaac, 2.6 block shots per game. Excellent. But the rebounding has been awful. You play 30 minutes, and you have 4 rebounds at center.
Yep.
That's not encouraging. And he's not someone that's going to give you much in the way of assists. So on days where he's not scoring, it's hard for him to make up for that outside of some block shots. You don't get the rebounds. You don't get the assists. Do I think this price is crazy against Atlanta? I don't. If he plays 30 minutes, I think it's okay. But I still don't see myself getting there with much volume.
All right. As always, you can find Dave on Twitter at Lofty_D, LOUGHY_D. Now we get to play the game we all love. It's not really a game. I just like asking this question. On the top end of price points, let's go 9K and above. Embiid, Drummond, Kawhi Leonard, Bradley Beal, Trae Young, AD, LeBron, Luka, and Giannis.
So with, in context, not just saying like who's the best fantasy or projected guy, I think I'm going to go Anthony Davis here against Washington. Just a really, really favorable spot on all fronts. The Wizards are now dead last in defensive rating. They've actually surpassed the Hawks and the Warriors. They play at 105 possessions per 48. That's 4th fastest in the league. And when you look at how they're going to defend somebody like Anthony Davis, the honest answer is I don't see how they do. I don't see how it's possible. Only the Pelicans and Hornets are allowing more points in the paint this season. That's not good. And then if you start looking at play type data, it really doesn't get any easier for this team. I think you're going to see Anthony Davis beat them up pretty much on all fronts. And I'm hopefully going to be around to watch it happen.
All right. There you have it again. Find him on Twitter at Lofty_D, LOUGHY_D. Find him on Sirius 210 XM 87 every Saturday and Sunday, 5 to 7 on Saturday, 7 to 9 p.m. on Sundays, Osmo Radio. And that is with one Manny Laura on most days. You can also find Dave across multiple shows over at Osmo.com. You're watching either on YouTube or you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you might be listening. Leave us a comment, leave us a rating, helps us get the word out. But also on YouTube, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and you are, of course, hitting that alarm bell because that lets you know when we go live. And we go live pretty damn often over here at Osmo.com.
We're never not live.
Yeah, that's pretty true. Tons of NFL content. Obviously, we are rolling into the weekend. I made mention of that big NBA tournament on Yahoo. They have some coming for NFL as well on Sunday. And of course, we will have content for that, but also across the entire spectrum. For the NBA, if you're an Osmo subscriber, check out Alex's boom bust rating. I think it's a good way to understand where Alex's projections are looking at the highest upside players and who he sees as having the highest potential to bust out. And Alex has been doing a paywalled show all NBA season. That's, of course, Awesemo, the purveyor of Awesemo.com. Not necessarily giving away plays, but just how he's looking at a slate and how he's constructing a lineup and how his percentages are going into the optimizer that he chooses to use. So with that said, find me on Twitter if you so choose, at Dan Strafford. Of course, as always, it's Awesemo_com. Tomorrow morning, you get Emac and Adam on the DFS Early Bird. Then on Monday, it's Emac and Chris Randone. Wish you the best of luck on Friday's slate. We'll be back with you more on here, the DFS Early Bird.